Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County Pre-Commission Meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 16th, 2022, and I'd like to officially call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here. We do have a busy agenda today for pre-commission, and of course we have our regularly scheduled meeting at 6 o'clock today. We also have a need to go into executive session, so at the appropriate time we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss some business appropriately. Item 1A today is the approval of minutes from August the 2nd, 2022 meeting. At this time, I entertain a motion for approval. Got a motion by Commissioner Wilder. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 2A is a resolution appointing Rabbi Elizabeth Bahar to serve on the member of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. She is not here with us right now, but I know she was on her way, but we're well familiar with her. She'll be replacing Rabbi Schlesinger on that board, which is appropriate, and she's been here to offer our invocation on a couple of occasions. So at this time, we do have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion regarding this item, I will take a motion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda tonight. Our next item, item 2B, is a resolution appointing Christopher Howard, Dr. Kathleen Halavity, to serve on members of the Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful Board. I do know they're here in the audience today, so we appreciate them being here, and I'd like to entertain a motion at this time for the approval. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark, and second by, was that Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Howell and Commissioner Wynn was a tie there. So having no questions on that item, I assume. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you for being here, and that will be on our consent agenda tonight. Going to move on to item C, which is a resolution reappointing Stephen Adams, Janice Jaden Sims, Wayne Woodsworth to serve as members of the Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful Board. They're already there. They are reappointments, and they are eligible, and all the background checks and appropriate paperwork has been filed. At this time, I entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Howell. Any further discussions? Hearing no discussions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 3A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Evidence-Based Associates, LLC, for services provided to the Macon-Bibb County Juvenile Court in amount not to exceed $379,890 using Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant funds. This is something we do on a regular basis. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any questions regarding this item? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 4A is a change to the code of ordinances and or policies and procedures, and I'll ask Attorney McNeil to come forward. This is concerning the vice marts and making some additional changes to make sure that we have some clarity and make sure that we have some enforceable action. So this time I'll ask Attorney McNeil, and make sure I got your microphone on, sir, to explain that, and then I'll entertain a motion after that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So item 4A adds a subsection to section 456 of the Macon-Bibb County Alcohol Code relating to the duration and renewal of licenses and the transfer of licenses. Currently, we have a moratorium on the issuance of new licenses for Vice Marts. That went into effect on March 16th of 2021. We also have a provision in our code that says that if a business has changes in its operations, they need to notify us as part of their alcohol license obligations. But recently we had a case come up out of Lizella where there was a business that had changed from a gas station to a Vice Mart and failed to notify us. And so rather than have sort of it's covered in the code already, and that they had the duty to notify and they failed to, but rather than have it implied that way, I thought, and the administration agreed, that it would be more appropriate just to expressly say, if you started business, if you got your license after the moratorium went into place in March of 2021, and you weren't a Vice Mart, but you become a Vice Mart, that by itself is grounds for revoking the license. And so this adds a paragraph that sets that out as a policy of the county. The way it's effectuated is the code enforcement can go to the store and inspect periodically as part of their enforcement operations under our alcohol code. That is already on the books. But if they go 2 times within a 60-day period, and they find that you are qualified as a Vice Mart, you don't have enough fresh food, your gas pumps aren't working, your pharmacy license lapses, whatever's going on, then that's enough, and we can take your alcohol license as a Vice Mart.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil. Any questions for the attorney? Here are no questions. I entertain a motion for approval. Got a motion by Commissioner Wilder. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further questions? I'm sorry. Commissioner Lucas, go ahead.
The code enforcement officers, do they undergo, I'd be interested in knowing the training, the level of training that they have. They are interacting more and given more authority, more power in interacting with citizens. So I'd like to know, just like our other law enforcement folks, the kinds of training that they have to make sure, because they are now authorized to carry weapons. Is that correct?
Some of them are, yes, ma'am.
And so they need to be subject to the same kinds of training that anybody else would be if they're going to, especially in the case of these folks who are interacting in kind of tense situations in a lot of cases, and then carry weapons as well. So I'd like to just know, if that's not available, I'd like to know the kinds of training, and I'm sure that there is a certain level of customer service, interaction with the community, all of those kinds of things. That's what I want to see.
Yes, ma'am, and they have all the same rights, responsibilities as the deputies do as far as that's concerned, and also the same training, especially the ones that are post-certified. They have the same training as far as the conflict resolution, for interaction, for carrying out particular duties and their responsibilities, as well as operating in the use of a firearm. So they have the exact same responsibilities, and we'll be happy to see you some. Yes, continuous training as well, and they have a lot of mandatory training they go through inter-office and outside the office. And I'll get Dr. Moffitt to send you a copy of all the information they're required to do, but it's the same.
Okay.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
information. We do have a motion and second. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda tonight. Item B is an ordinance to amend Section 1 of the Policies and Procedures Manual entitled Macon-Bibb County Government for the purpose of amending and restating such section as provided for herein. That's a lot of legal language, so we'll ask our attorney to explain what's going on here, and then we'll take the appropriate vote.
Okay. So this is the first of a prolonged series of legislation items that we're going to be bringing to the commission. There is a committee that has been meeting, consisting of HR, legal, and a couple of department heads, going over our entire policies and procedures manual, making recommendations for updates and changes, and then those are going through the administration to present to the commission. And so tonight we have Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is fairly straightforward, but there are 10 chapters in total, and so you're going to see this over time. And then at the end, there are some cross-references in the document, and so I'm going to ask you guys to restate the whole thing once we have a final form and we get a chance to clean up the cross-references and things as far as how it's all going to read. So in this legislative item, this ordinance, we have Chapter 1 generally covers introduction to, what does it mean to be an employee in Macon-Bibb County and who do these policies apply to. If you turn to the first exhibit in the resolution, you can see a red line version of all the specific changes that have been made. You'll see that Section 1.05, Equal Opportunity Employment and Harassment Policies, has been stricken entirely. That is not being deleted. That is moved to Chapter 3, which is where all of our other compliance and harassment policies and things like that are. So we're not deleting that. Everything else from Section 1.01 to what is currently 1.07 is all staying the exact same. There were no changes to the first 6 sections other than moving 105 into Chapter 3. So the only 2 sections that are getting any amendments at all are emergency procedures and hazardous weather. The emergency procedures section just adds some language about different kinds of emergencies. The current code talks mostly in terms of fire evacuation. But if you have a tornado, for example, you're supposed to stay inside instead of run outside as opposed to a fire. And so it adjusts to different kinds of emergency preparedness. And let me see. And then section on hazardous weather just goes into some more detail about, what is the county's response to hazardous weather. If an employee can't come in because there's hazardous weather, then if the whole building is shut down, a whole office is shut down, then the employee just gets paid administrative leave for the day. But if everyone else can come in and you just can't come in for some reason, then you take leave. And it talks about essentially that the administration and the offices have discretion for sending employees home early if there's dangerous weather that's coming in and things like that. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions, but really that's the gist of it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Watkins?
And thank you for addressing the issue of whether or not that there was not a deletion, it was just moving it to the backside. But I wanted to ask, I guess at some other time during this process, hazard pay and pandemic response may come up. Are y'all planning for that section? We've talked about it maybe some years in the past, but never have actually.
There is a chapter in the policy manual that deals generally with leave benefits and things like that, but I don't believe there's any current hazard pay policies.
Correct.
Right.
And that was, I know last time when we had the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, that was an issue. We didn't have update policies to address what to do during that issue. So we really weren't able to do anything as it affected pay and sick leave and that type of stuff. So I was asking, while we're making these updates, is that anticipated in the updates, or is that something that we can or should request, or?
No, at this time that was not considered, but I will put it on the list now to discuss in detail.
You said no, it's not considered, but y'all will consider it, or?
Well, correct. It was not. It's not on the table because it was not a policy that we initially had. So now that you've brought it up, I will put it on the list to discuss and talk to the mayor about it, and we will address it accordingly.
Wonderful. Look forward to hearing more.
Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Carr.
I just have a question that's probably very stupid, but I just wanted to ask on the harassment section that's been moved to section 3. With it being moved to section 3 and us not doing the rewrite of section 3, if we're going chronologically chapter to chapter, there's no time gap in it existing, that policy not existing until we get to chapter 3, right?
No, sir. If you look at section 1 of the ordinance, just says that provision is renumbered. So instead of being 105, it's now section 3.08 upon the passage.
Yeah,
of this
it was a very stupid question, but I wanted to ask just to make sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn?
Repeal anti-harassment.
Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attorney McNeil, I commend whoever decided to update these procedures and policies, because I think it hasn't been done since consolidation, and I thank you to Dr. Moffitt. I'm like Commissioner Lucas and Commissioner Watkins. I was wondering where the harassment thing went. I was reading it and thinking it's down at the bottom somewhere where it's changed, but good to know it's just been moved.
Right.
And we're gonna, the whole thing wouldn't be effective until we're through all 10 sections, right?
So
Or
the
do
way
we
this
approve each one as we go along?
Right. The way this is structured, each chapter will become effective as you approve the revisions.
Okay.
And then once we're all done, just because there are a few little cross-references and things like that, we want to make sure that we're not referring to the wrong numbered section. So there will be a cleanup ordinance at the very end just to fix little grammatical things and that kind of stuff.
So we will approve each chapter at a time?
That's
and then
that's
at the
what
end,
this does. Yes,
final
ma'am.
approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. At this time, I entertain a motion for approval. A motion by Commissioner Wynn. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. This time, we're about to prepare to go into executive session. I do note that we have, Mr. Morrison, would you mind standing up for just a moment? Alex Morrison. Tony, I know you have a situation you want to talk to someone about tonight, we don't address the commission during pre-commission. We do it in our night meeting, which is about an hour. But I'm going to ask you in the meantime, while we go to executive session, to talk to Alex Morrison, who runs the parking meters, the gentleman standing right here in front of me. If y'all have a conversation, because I believe that's what you're here about, maybe you can clean up that. If not, we'll be happy to hear from you later on tonight. I just didn't want you sitting for an hour for nothing to do. So if y'all don't mind talking while we're in executive session, we're good. This time, I entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of consultation with the attorney or our legal counsel to discuss pending or potential litigation, settlement claims, or all of those allowed by law. This time, we entertain a motion to go into executive session. Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Can we get a second? Second by, who's that? Commissioner Jones? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. We're now in executive session to further business. Get a motion to come out of executive session? A motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark, and a second. Second by Commissioner Wilder. You have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We're now in executive session, and we have no further business that brings us here today as far as the committee of the whole pre-commission meeting. So this meeting is hereby adjourned, and we'll begin our 6 o'clock meeting right now. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County meeting. We are here tonight, and this is not what I asked for. All right, now we're officially here. I'd like to officially call this meeting to order, and we'll begin our meeting tonight, like we always do, by calling the meeting to order, and then we'll have a prayer here. So tonight, who's going to lead the prayer? Dr. Henry Ficklin, if you don't mind approaching. He will lead us in a time of prayer, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by any announcements before our meeting.
The blessings of liberty, life, and happiness in these United States. We especially thank you for all the things that this commission and this mayor are doing to make life better in Macon, Georgia. Now, Father, we ask that you would give them your guidance and leadership as they continue to lead us to better life here in Macon-Bibb County. This is our prayer in your son's name we ask. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, we'll entertain approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from August the 2nd, 2022 regular meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We have no public comments on agenda items. I know we have some on non-agenda items tonight, but we'll go ahead and move forward with new business and old business. We have a presentation tonight as well. We'll go ahead and take care of that, Dr. Ficklin. Anyone else involved in that presentation? Ms. Stevens, if you want to come forward, and anybody else you have. You may proceed.
Office of the Mayor, Macon-Bibb County, Georgia. Whereas John William Templeton, a historian, and Frederick A. Jordan Sr., a civilian engineer, found Black Business Month in 2004 to drive policy and affect the African American business and initiative to recognize Black-owned businesses across the country and highlight their importance to the community and national economy. And whereas Black business owners account for 10% of the U.S. businesses, about 30% of all minority-owned businesses, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, which amounts to the approximately 2 million companies owned by African Americans. And whereas August is National Business Month, and Black-owned businesses are recognized across the country, and Macon-Bibb County joins in celebrating and recognizing the importance of Black businesses in our local community. And whereas Black Philanthropy Month, BPM, observed every August, is a global celebration and concerted campaign to evaluate African descent-given people of African descent created by Dr. Jackie Bolivia Copeland and the Pan-African Women's Philanthropy Network. And whereas since it was established, Black Philanthropy Month has reached roughly 17 million people and become an increasingly year-round diasporic initiative that illuminates the ingenuity and transformative impact of the generosity in black communities. And whereas locally we have had great business people and philanthropists like Charles Douglas, Ruth Hartley Mosley, C.H. Hartley, C.H. Hutchins Sr., and others that gave resources to make this community better for all. And whereas the Macon-Bibb County Office of Small Business Affairs, Central Georgia Coalition of African Americans, the Middle Georgia Black Pages, the Central Georgia Empowerment Fund, and others will host events, spotlight companies, and provide resources to small business owners, entrepreneurs, and philanthropy, encouraging the community to join the celebration, supporting black-owned businesses and other entrepreneurs beyond this month. Now, therefore, I, Lester M. Miller, do hereby proclaim August 2022 as National Black Business and Philanthropy Month in Macon-Bibb County, and I urge all citizens to recognize the valuable contributions and importance to our community and economy of black businesses. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the consolidated government to be affixed this first day of August 2022, and it is signed by our mayor.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being here tonight. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. We have one item of new business. You may remember alcohol license from Mercer 3737 LLC, located at 3737 Mercer University Drive. We have an update for that. Attorney Howard?
We do, Mr. Mayor. I'm Assistant County Attorney Frank Howard. As you may remember, on July 12th, 2022, the Committee of the Whole recommended denial of this alcohol license application because the owner of the business, of the business location, the real property at 3737 Mercer University Drive, owed back taxes in excess of $30,000 in violation of Macon-Bibb County Code Section 26-51, therefore it would not have been proper for him to have a certificate of good standing at that time. However, on August 8th, 2022, the agent for this business, Mr. Nabil Goraya, contacted me to inform me that the owner had in fact paid the taxes as of August 8th, 2022. I reviewed the tax commissioner's records on that date and confirmed that in fact all outstanding taxes have been paid for that property. Therefore, given that change in circumstances, I am changing my recommendation from denial of this alcohol license to approval of this alcohol license.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. We have a recommendation by our attorneys for approval. Can I get a motion for approval? Motion by Commissioner Jones. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Lucas. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you very much. We do have one item of old business, which is a resolution renaming a portion of Anthony Road, Robert Scott Boulevard. That was sponsored by Commissioner Virgil Watkins and passed at our last meeting that we held. And we had about an hour worth of conversation there. I don't know that we need an update on that, but at this time I'd entertain a motion for approval of this particular item of changing the road, that particular road, to Robert Scott Boulevard. Commissioner Watkins, would you like to make that motion?
Moved.
A motion by Commissioner Watkins. Can we get a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion? Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will not make this an hour-long conversation. I heard the wonderful things about why this should be renamed, and Commissioner Watkins has given a lot of information to me. Sounds like Robert L. Scott is a fine man, good man. It's just my reasoning for not and I will not support this, but not supporting it is because I think we set a precedent by naming a piece of a road after somebody. And I still believe that if we put one of those signs up that says Robert L. Scott Boulevard like we have for other places that stands out, it would be a better recognition for him on that road. And it would be both ways. When you look at a street sign, you don't pay attention to the name. A lot of people still want to say that's Anthony Road going over there, but I'm certainly nothing against this man, his family, or anything. He sounds like a fine man. It's just the basis behind it. You do it for one, you're going to have to do it for another if it comes up again. So that's why I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah, I agree. I dare not be against Mr. Scott, since he's a deceased member of Historic Stewart Chapel. I knew him for years and years. He and his family were living sort of in the same neighborhood as my in-laws and my husband growing up. So there are I've got a lot of reasons to support this. However, I really have a concern that's been expressed to me that there are some folks who would like to, in the future, use that section of Anthony Road to pay tribute to the entire Ballard Hudson high school family. The principal, Dr. R.J. Martin, who was there for, Dr. Ficklin would know how many years. And then there are so many other people who have fond memories of faculty members of Ballard Hudson. My own father-in-law was a coach there for a long time. I really like the idea of putting up those street signs. They're very large signs. They are very visible, and I'm fearful that changing the name of the street, the signs will become, they'll be reduced and they'll be the street signs rather than those huge signs that are placed one at each end of the section of the street. So I'm not gonna vote against this. I can't do that, but I certainly would like to hear if there are others who see the wisdom in placing the large signs, of amending this and placing the large signs, which would allow this group to have the big ceremony, but would also leave that space available for recognition of the school, which is historic. And then one other thing, there's a church in there, and it's my understanding that that church is not in favor. They don't have a problem with placing the large signs and the in recognition, but they do have a concern, and they thought there was going to be another hearing on this. So I don't know if the sponsor still wants to move forward with that, but I think there are just so many. It gives us another option, and it leaves it open for us to pay tribute to others from that school. There is a historic marker that the Ballard Hudson group placed in there a few years ago, and I would like to see similar, because that is history in there. Many of our black citizens graduated, were in the band, were a part of a lot of the things going on in historic Ballard Hudson. So I just like to hear if there's any
Commissioner Lucas,
but I
don't-
can't vote against it if it,
Okay.
but I would love that option.
You won't be able to amend this particular motion because that entirely changes the whole process. You certainly could move the table if you wanted to, but you won't be able to amend that to change it to the other thing. So you want to hear from Commissioner Watkins first and then come back to you? Sure. Commissioner
Yeah.
Watkins?
And
Yeah. So I thought we went over this last week. I still personally as a sponsor, hadn't received any negative or concerns from any citizen, but I can see we're still a bit confused and I guess unready on this issue, and their members missing. So at this moment, I would like to ask to table this action.
I'll second that.
That's your pleasure. We certainly got, and Mr. Bronson is online as well, so we only missing Mr. Tillman here tonight. So we have a motion to table and a second by Commissioner Lucas. That's your motion, sir?
I'm sorry, you
That's your
said
motion?
Commissioner Bronson is here today?
He's on the phone. I want to make sure you
I
knew
didn't
that.
realize that. I thought we were.
You're going to withdraw your motion?
If there's more conversation, I'd like to hear it. So I withdraw it for the time being. But if that's the will of the body, that's, like I said, I thought we were in unison on this when we left last week. But I can see that there are amendments that want to be. I'd love to hear from everybody else, so I'll yield at this time.
Okay. It passed 6-2 with one extension last time. I just want to make sure everyone knew that Commissioner Bronson was on the line and didn't think he was absent for this vote, so he can participate. We have one more person waiting, Commissioner Jones, and then we'll come back to Mr. Bronson if you'd like to, and again back to Commissioner Watkins if you'd like to. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. I still say I agree with Commissioner Wynn and Commissioner Lucas that you honor Mr. Scott in a more prominent way with this separate sign, and I see it. You know, I think of the Dwayne Allman Way on Vineville that I see all the time. If I'm sitting at a traffic light, I don't look up and look at Pierce or Pinona or Vineville. I know what that street is. So, plus, it allows us to be consistent with what we've done, because people in the past who were also honorable people, we did this type of recognition and we didn't change the street sign. And so I think you open the door for someone to come forward and say, what about me? What about him? What about her? So that's my thought. I'll vote against it based on that reasoning.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
I really reiterate what I said last week. I think that the exception that's in the code exists for a reason. I think that when you're dealing with a petition area that has, I think, what do we say, 6 physical residents that live there, and the hurdles and the attempts to reach out to the absent property owners of the blighted property, when you take all that into account, I strongly believe that the intention behind adding a waiver in there is for something such as this. And I definitely think that the history that has come out of that building collectively is worth celebrating in a number of different ways, whether it be changing a road name, honoring it with an act of a placard, or the ceremonial road name changes like Dwayne Allman Boulevard. I don't think that changing the name, as this body has decided to do 6-2 last week, changing course tonight, tempers us from being able to do that again. I mean, I don't know what stops us from putting another, changing a section, or not changing a section, but doing another ceremony that does honor the principal or honor the Ballard Hudson community again. I mean, I think this is the history that's come out of that building is incredibly deep and worth, a lot more than 1 or 2 acts of this body. So just as, I'm not the sponsor. I'm happy to sign on as a co-sponsor. I'd actually like to be, but it does run through my district. I have heard from members of the Ballard Hudson Alumni Association. I haven't heard any pushback, and I'm prepared to vote to send this to the mayor's desk tonight as written. But again, I'm not much like the posture of you, Commissioner Lucas. I don't want to push the body to a place they're uncomfortable, but I felt that we really cleared up a lot of this last week. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Mr. Bronson, I don't think he asked to speak right now, but he would like to vote at the appropriate time, so we'll hear from him through his vote. Commissioner Watkins, any final words before we call a vote?
Again, the community that lives, works, and attends school in this area and has for several decades are requesting this change to a street that they drive down and see the signs. This is how they want the change to be. I didn't know that we were so set in stone with our street names that a street name could never change. Like, that doesn't sound like a great system either to me. And they've went through the necessary hoops, expended their own alumni association money on contacting folks and hours of times, and follow the process for a year. And at some point, we need to vote their request up or down. I think that's what folks come to expect out of a political body, not to just leave them hanging for infinity. So I guess I'm asking, if we voted up or down, even if it's voted no, can we still come back to, I guess, the second option of something else? Because we do owe these folks a response.
If by some chance it does get voted down, certainly that's the other option. But we're still communicating now. Commissioner Howell, you have something to answer?
I abstained from this last week because I didn't get one last shot at my conversation last week, but it looks like I'm gonna get it now. So, and I mentioned this to the petitioner the other night. If you look at the map and you look at the petition and you look at the lack of signatures from the people that were there, if you started at the start of Anthony Road and went to Lincoln Street, I believe it's Lincoln Street, which is the street that runs beside Ballard Hudson. Am I right? I think it's Lincoln Street. If you took out the houses and businesses and lots and property that was from there to Pinona Avenue and just looked from Lincoln Street back toward Jeff Davis Street, you've got frontage for the school, you've got frontage for the other school, you've got frontage for some other big pieces of property there. And I believe that, from what I understood, if the schools went along with it, you would have what you needed to satisfy the percentage of residents. I don't know that I was so much against renaming the street. I'm against going against our policy that we've had in place. Now, with this revelation from Commissioner Lucas, what do we do if they come back and want to do something different now? I guess I'm a little more confused about that. But I guess if in my personal opinion, if we would have stopped it at Lincoln Street, I wouldn't have had a problem voting for this, because I think it would fall within the realm of what our ordinance says, and we wouldn't be making an exception and then doing something that might come back to bite us later.
Is that a request to amend? Commissioner Watkins?
To seek resolution and closure for the night, and also not twist anybody's arm unnecessarily. If we table for the purposes of hosting a second public hearing on this issue, make sure that we well publicize it, so that if there are some naysayers or some second ideas, they have had adequate opportunity to make their voices heard. In the event that there isn't a hyphenated name that is created for the street, could we then bring this back on the table at the end of that public hearing? That sound, and also that'll give legal the opportunity to review the percentages of streets idea and present that at that time as well, if it's a viable thing that works. I'm open to all of that. Does that make sense, or did I miss something?
No, I think what I'm hearing is correct. If you do a motion to table and get a second, and it does in fact get tabled, you just want us to assure you that we'll go ahead and set a hearing, and at the completion of that hearing, that we'll put this to bed one way or the other.
Correct.
Okay. So I take that as a motion to table. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Non-debatable motion. All those in favor of tabling this particular item tonight, and resetting the hearing for a final vote at a later time, please say aye. Opposed, nay? Okay. Carries. Motion does table. I'll ask our attorneys to go ahead and give us some options, if you can, as soon as possible, to set the hearing, make sure we will publicize that, and put it back on our calendar for September the 13th, which is our next calendar, or the 20th, okay?
I will get that date set up with your office and our sponsor and make sure that it is published in the Telegraph and that the neighbors do receive notice of that hearing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda was something that voted on and passed unanimously last meeting, items 10A through 10Q. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published. Motion by Commissioner Wilder. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. There's no need to go into executive session tonight, and there's no further business that brings us here. Our next scheduled meeting will be on the 13th of September, which follows a holiday for us coming up on Labor Day. If we have a special call meeting in the between, we'll let you know about that date. So until then, we'll see you September 13th. Okay, we do have someone to speak on a non-agenda item. I'm sorry, John. You got the form? Okay. I apologize. I didn't have the form up here, but I do remember you being at our pre-commission meeting, and you have 3 minutes to talk about non-item agendas. Earlier, you wanted to talk about parking meters. I assume you still want to mention that, and perhaps also about the good standing letter. Or has that been taken care of? Okay. You may begin, sir.
Thank y'all for y'all's time this evening. So the first one we'll talk about is going to be the park meters downtown. So we are a heating and air company. I'm with MW Heating and Air out of Lizella, and we can remember do quite a bit of business downtown. We're supposed to be able to park in the loading and unloading zones down here, but the problem we're having, we're still getting ticketed if we park there. So we're having to park at meters. We put money into meters, meter runs out, we get ticketed for that also. We're a commercial company, we deal in heat and air. We're 4 or 5 floors up on top of these roofs. Need some help here, guys, with this. I mean, I did speak to Mr. Morrison, in which he was able to give me a lot of good direction and actually enlighten me on what's happening and what we can do, we'll be doing here soon. However, if it's possible, you know, I'm willing to see if we can't just pay like a yearly amount for a vehicle for parking, like it's $50 per vehicle that for my company, and have a sticker on my vehicle, so when we're down here, we're good to go. If that's something y'all might be willing to think about. Next thing is going to be that good standing ordinance or whatever it is. So now every 90 days, in order for me to pull a permit, I have to come down here, fill that out, spend another $35, I think it is, or $30 to have this done. This license here. So why are y'all hitting me up now every 90 days? I think it's every 90 days. I got to come down here and fill out this form to say I'm in good standings with the county. So when I apply for my license, or the company apply for a license, are y'all not checking then? I mean, it's a hassle for a company to have to run down here every 9 days and fill those out and make sure that I don't owe taxes or don't owe for a parking ticket in order to pull a permit to do business in the county. I mean, I'm a business, we're in the county. I mean, kind of hamstringing us here. If there's something y'all can do to help us, I really appreciate that. All right?
Yeah, I'll definitely check on that. I'm not aware of any $35 fee, but I also know that I signed a order allowing for that particular situation to be taken care of in blank, and I'll talk with Mr. Howard later about that. But of course, the purpose and intent is not to keep you from doing the business, is to make sure that people pay their taxes, and we have evidence tonight that we had at least one case where people paid $32,000 in taxes, and I'm not going to go back and forth with you. I just want to make sure
Yes,
that you
and I
understand
heard that too, and I understand the purpose of it by all means.
But we'll look and see. We want to make sure that we're very friendly to business, and we try our best to do so, and we don't want any unintended consequences. We made a slight change to that, at least through my order, and felt like we addressed that, and I'll check on the $35, and that's something I was not aware about, so we'll check on that to see if we can do some other type of pre-certifications for those types of businesses. Is not what it's intended to, but it's been very successful otherwise, and we're certainly pleased with how it's worked, the process so far. But I'll get together with them, as well as I believe Safe Built may be the one you got the good standing, or planning and zoning, to make sure we take care of that situation for you. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. If anybody here for the good of the order, Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
I'd just like to ask everyone at home that's watching and here tonight to continue to keep Stephen Fulbright from Visit Macon in his prayers, and to his family and friends. We are praying for you, and we're with you. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. But Stephen is still recovering and needs all the good thoughts that we can send his way. So we're thinking about you, Stephen.
Thank you. Well, that completes our business for tonight. We'll see everybody on September the 13th.